Cuyahoga Valley National Park is an interesting place that follows the Cuyahoga River and is surrounded on all sides by the dense metropolitan areas of both Cleveland and Akron. I didn't know what to expect on my visit, but as I drove the interconnected parts of the park, I found a lot to like in the waterfalls, overlooks, covered bridges, and historic buildings that make up this unique part of the Midwest. Here's how I spent 24 hours in Cuyahoga Valley National Park, and let me know what you think of this spot in the comments. I spent the previous night in Akron, and then I drove 20 minutes into the park to go to my first stop. Welcome to National Park number 48 in Ohio, Cuyahoga Valley. I actually thought it was going to be a little bit more springtime here since it's the middle of April. Everything's still a little dead, but we're going to have fun today exploring the park, heading out on the Ledges Trail first. This is the Ledges area. I'm going to go out the stairs and then back around to the overlook and then back. I will say something that's immediately recognizable about this park is that you're surrounded by roads, and so almost everywhere you go you can hear the traffic noise, even though it doesn't feel like I'm near any roads. The Ledges Trail is about 2 miles round trip with about 200 feet of elevation gain. The eastern part of the trail is where the picturesque ledges are located, and that's definitely where I recommend heading out to see first. Most of the rock formations you see here are conglomerate, which is a mixture of quartz pebbles and sandstone. Alright, Cuyahoga Valley, I just started, but you have my attention with this trail. It's beautiful. Wow, look at that rock with the cave there. Wow, that is cool. This section is called the Ritchie Ledges, which were named after a farmer who once owned this land. I was blown away as the moss-covered rock is not something I was expecting to see in this national park. So you can of course go around that way, but check this little pathway out. You kind of come around here and then look at this. Wow, those moss-covered walls. That is so cool. It's the middle of the day and I expected there to be a lot of people here, but I think the rain and the snow earlier scared everybody off. Not complaining. I have this amazing place all to myself. This section has been attracting people for over a century, and it's easy to see why, as there's so many different nooks and crannies to climb around and explore. All sorts of fun little slots you can go through, like this one right here. Walking through these felt like I was going into different mazes, and I never knew what was going to be around the next bend. You definitely have to get small as you go through this section. That's the hole we just came out right there. Time for more exploring on the Ledges Trail. There is an actual cave in here called the Icebox Cave, but it's completely closed off. So this is about all you can see of it. Check out my All Trails map for exploring that section. It was so cool, I had to do as much as I possibly could in there. From the cave, as we continued to the overlook, the rock formations were still there, but they kept getting smaller and smaller. Do make sure to explore them as much as you can here, as you'll be leaving them pretty quickly. As we leave the forested section and head up to the overlook, the rain is back for us. I don't know how the views will be, but we'll see. As you leave the forest, the trail crosses the park road, and then pretty quickly you'll arrive at the overlook. Alright, well here's the overlook. It was a nice place to sit and relax for a few minutes, but I have to say the views are pretty anticlimactic when I was there. The rain's starting up again, so we're just heading back to the car and onward to our next stop in the national park. Leaving the Ledges Trail, I headed to Kendall Lake, which is only about a 3-minute drive away. This is a beautiful spot that's popular for fall color photography during the right time of the year. It also has a 1-mile trail that allows you to go around the lake if you want to take in the views. It was pretty rainy when I was there, so I just took a couple photos and headed on. Luckily, the rain stopped as I drove the 15 minutes to the next part of the park. If you see my Fall Colors road trip, then you know how much I love covered bridges, so this is a treat for me. Everett Covered Bridge is the only covered bridge that still remains in this part of the county. The original bridge here is believed to have been built in the 1860s. It lasted for over a century through different floods and even being hit by a truck in the 70s. but unfortunately a big storm in 1975 actually took the bridge out. Because it was such a loved part of the history here, they began raising funds to rebuild the bridge, and they did so in 1986. This is a historically accurate reconstruction of what the bridge would have looked like, and it's really fun to be able to walk around and see it. That's a cool little stop, and there's lots of history about how the park was created, which is also cool to read. If you're here in the summer after June 7th this year, be sure to stop here. This is a great place to get some sweet corn and to get some lunch. From there was about a 5-minute drive down to one of the top spots in the park, the Beaver Marsh. The Beaver Marsh is a fantastic example of what has happened to transform this park into what it is today. This trail we're walking on now is known as the Towpath, and it's about a 50-60 mile trail that runs all the way through the park and that you can bike, which would be pretty cool to do at some point in time. In the 1800s, the wetlands here actually dried up due to development, farming, and eventually even an auto repair shop. However, when the national park was created, they set about trying to figure out how to bring back the wetlands to this area. It wasn't until the late 1980s when the park began cleaning up the small dump sites around the former auto body shop. Here they removed car parts and all sorts of trash, which allowed the beavers to come back to the area, which hadn't been here for over a century. With the introduction of the beavers and some flooding, these marshes came back to life and became the amazing place they are to explore today. Now it's one of the most popular places in the park to see wildlife, which include the beavers if you're lucky, but also include lots of different types of birds. When I was there were dozens of people just sitting and watching the birds and taking photos, and it was a really serene place in the park. It's about a half mile each way to walk out to the boardwalk where the main Beaver Marsh is. After leaving the marsh, we headed about 25 minutes north to get to our next stop. One of the crazy things about this national park is how you basically just exit the nature, drive highways, go through cities, and then get back into the nature again. It's not really like any other park I've been to outside of maybe Indiana Dunes. So I thought this was part of the national park, but I think it's actually a city park. It's right next to the national park, so why not go check out another waterfall? It was about a quarter mile to walk down to the falls, and I had no idea what to expect coming here. Wow, that waterfall is raging. Look at the mist just coming off of it. That is a ton of water right now. This is called Great Falls of Tinker's Creek, and it's been used over the years to power many different things, ranging from a sawmill and grist mill to an electric power plant. You can even see the ruins of some of these things at the base of the falls, and you can see the immense pressure coming over the falls, so it must have worked pretty well to harness the power. Well, that was a welcome surprise I didn't expect. Guessing it doesn't look like that all the time because we've had a lot of rain, but wow, that was an impressive waterfall. As I headed back to the national park, I decided to take the Gorge Parkway, and as I was driving, I stumbled on another waterfall and figured I had to check it out. This hike is about a quarter mile round trip, and it goes down a series of stairs along a creek to get to Bridal Falls. This is not really a traditional waterfall, it's more the cascading type, but it's easy to access and it's a great spot to see right off Gorge Parkway if you happen to be in the area. Alright, from here we're officially heading back into the national park, but those two stops were pretty great. We're back in the national park at the Canal Exploration Center. This building is only open in the summers, but there's still some canal history stuff we can see outside. Here's the Towpath Trail that I was telling you about earlier. That goes all through the national park. At the Canal Exploration Center, you can explore what life was like in the mid-1800s here. The building in which the center is located was actually a rest stop along the Ohio and Erie Canal. Now when it's open, it has interactive exhibits that talk to you about the canal, what life was like here, and what it was used for. One of the most interesting exhibits I saw was this mule along the towpath. The sign here talked about how mules were actually used to tow boats through the canals. That's something I never knew before I came here. Well, 5 minutes from our last stop, this is a quick stop right off of the road to see an old historic house. As we head further south, there's two small history stops you can make if you're interested. The first is the Frazee House, which is located right off the main road, and the interior is closed, but you can still walk around the outside.
The other stop you can see is the remains of the company town for the Jate paper mill. These buildings are used by the National Park Service now, so you can't go inside any of them, but you can see them as you drive by, or you can stop and walk around for a minute.
All right, we got a few more stops in the park. First up, the visitor center. There's also a train that runs through the park that you can take, but it's not running while we're here. You can actually bike one way, and then you can get on the train with your bike and have it take you all the way back.
The Boston Mill Visitor Center is located right along the train track, and it's the main visitor center in the national park. The building it's housed in was built in 1905, and it was a company store for the Cleveland and Akron Bag Company. Inside, you can learn about the area's history, get your passport stamp, talk to a ranger, and get some great views of the river.
All right, only two things left to do in the national park. The first is right across from the visitor center, and it's a 3-mile round trip trail to Hen Falls. Unfortunately, this is one of those trails where you're basically walking along the road the entire time. Basically, the last 1/10 of the mile is the only part that's not on the road, but there's no closer parking, so this is what you gotta do.
This is easily the most challenging trail I did in the national park, as there's a decent amount of uphill and downhill both ways. Plus it gets muddy, which makes the trail very slippery.
This is such a strange park. I can't get over it. There's literally a highway right there along the path. I drove the freeway to get to different parts. I don't even know how to describe it. It's just really interesting.
Once you hike the second uphill portion, you'll reach the road.
We connected with the road, and now we're walking along it for a little while until we can cross over and finish the falls. Here's where we cross the road to continue on to the falls.
This is definitely not one of my favorite trails. The payoff at the end is pretty nice, but walking along the road is just not my favorite thing.
I haven't seen a single person with me the entire time I've been on this trail, so I think I'm gonna have the falls all to myself.
Once you make it to this sign, you can see where the original 3-car parking lot used to be. And with the popularity of the national parks, you can see why they had to make a different trail to get up here.
Check it out, we made it to Hen Falls. That's a really nice one. It's simple, but it's very pretty.
The waterfall is about 15 feet tall, and it almost looks like it's falling into a small amphitheater. If you happen to be here in the fall, I've seen pictures of this area and it looks incredibly beautiful.
That's a nice little waterfall. I can't complain. Now I'm gonna put this away and we're gonna head to the top spot in the national park to end the video.
After about a 10-minute drive, we made it to the waterfall I'd been excited to see all day.
All right, here's our final and the most popular spot in the entire national park, Brandywine Falls.
Open dawn to dusk, the 3 different viewpoints for this impressive waterfall are all accessed via an elevated boardwalk. When I got my first view of this 60-foot waterfall, I was blown away. The sheer magnitude of power coming off the falls was impressive to see, and something I wasn't anticipating seeing in Ohio.
I have to say, that's an impressive waterfall. Look at Ohio coming through with that amazing waterfall. Let's go check out a few more of the viewpoints.
The lower viewpoint is by far the best, but of course while you're here, you're going to want to see them all. Also note that this is the most popular place in the park, and that if you come on a busy holiday or weekend, it's going to be difficult to find parking. Continuing from the upper viewpoint, you'll get to the ruins of one of the electric companies that used to harness the power of the water. This also gives you another great view of the waterfall from basically right at its top.
Before we say goodbye, I have one more thing I'm going to show you. I'm actually staying at that hotel right there. Let's go check it out.
One of my favorite things to find when visiting national parks is the historic hotels that were built around the parks. This is the inn at Brandywine Falls that was built in 1848.
All right, so there's the historic house, and then there's the carriage house outside, and I'm actually staying in the carriage house. This room is called the Granary, but check out how cool this is. This is the downstairs. There's a fireplace. It's a cool seating area. And then in here we have a bathtub with a spa jets. And then the room
is actually up here in the loft. So here is my bed, right up here. This isn't sponsored or anything, I paid for it myself, but wow, I'm super excited. This is one of the coolest historic hotels I've been in a national park. This room that I'm in was featured in National Geographic's 10 best park rooms to beg for. That is so cool. The hotel was also a bed and breakfast, and it had a fantastic 3-course breakfast the next morning. Of course, the main reason that you stay here is that you can actually walk to Brandywine Falls, which closes at dusk. It's right there. It's only about a 5-minute walk to Brandywine Falls, which was definitely the highlight for me, and I walked over there multiple times during my stay. I didn't get a good sunrise or sunset, but it was still cool to be at this amazing waterfall all by myself. That's it for our time in Cuyahoga National Park. Hopefully you enjoyed exploring with me and saw a new national park that maybe you never thought about visiting before. I had a great time checking it out, and we will see you on the next video.